Day 2, we're back live. We're on the air. I'm gonna get this little part hopefully here in like 4 seconds and then move on. We'll come back to that. I guess we'll do a little recap. Middle of day, day 2 of assembly. Mike's making noise, being a busy bee. We're about 75% done with the wiring. Can't win. Getting ready to put the radiator support in. We're going to install the CNR radiator. Start plumbing up all the front hoses. We got the daily dry sump. We need to hook up the oil lines, oil cooler. CNR's got the radiator and the oil cooler for us. Put in the vintage air condenser.
You're good. Keep going. Don't worry about the noise.
Oh, I'm not worried about noise. I'm going to catch what we're doing. Then we're going to go over here.
Yep.
Then we're going to go over here. So they're about to put the radiator support in, and we'll start adding the rest of the parts. You're fine.
You want?
Yeah. We're not gonna quit making noise to talk. So you just keep making noise.
I do know about it.
So also this afternoon, Mike's gonna go over the brakes. We're gonna finish installing the Wilwood brakes in the car, get them all shimmed in and dialed in. Mike will tell you all about that. We're also going to install the fuel tank here shortly. But we can go over a few of the things going on here. Part of it's already installed, but we have the Rick's fuel tank here. The awesome thing about the fuel tank is the VaporWorks setup and everything that goes with it. So we've got dual pickup points in the car. We'll never run out of fuel. You can pull 2 Gs right, left, fuel splash around with the baffling in it with the dual pickups. We get every last ounce of fuel out of it. So that's a really cool deal. And we're also adding the VaporWorks fuel controller on it to give us 60 PSI of fuel all the time. We don't need a return line this way. It pulse width modulates the pressure and changes the voltage of the pump. Pumps don't run as hot, they last longer, they're way happier this way. With the horsepower level we're at on this car, we're right on the edge of needing 2 fuel pumps. So we have 2 ways of doing 2 fuel pumps. You can put 2 pumps in the tank, or you can order the Cadillac CTS-V pump. We chose to get that pump. It has twin Walbro pumps in it, easily accessible. You can get it at the local parts store. If we have a problem, we can pop a new pump in it. So that'll be a good fit. So this is going to go in shortly. We'll have the tank in. And with the tank, we'll install, some breathers. You got to make sure anytime you put a fuel tank in, rollover valves or a breathing system is important. Something goes wrong, you don't want the fuel spilling out of the car and catching on fire. So that's all about to come up. We've started assembling the dash. The dash in the car is a VFN fiberglass piece. And kind of a nice deal because, this is the cross between race car, street car, and, we really don't need the glove box, so we didn't cut it into it. But we can put anything where we want in the dash, so I can reach it and be comfortable. We've got these vintage air controls in. Got the vintage air slider ducts in, which are a really cool piece. And we'll mount the kicker stereo in between the 2 vents here in a little bit. But these slider vents are pretty cool because you just push them in and out. Actually, you can control how much air you get. Cool built little parts. Of course, we got the Racepack IQ 3S Street Dash, which is a pretty new part from Racepack. It's basically the race data logging dash that you've seen in all the race cars for the years, but it now has turn signal indicators, high beams, and all your street car friendly parts to go with it. You know, one of the little tech tips I'll give you guys as we're going through this, you notice lots of yellow tape. And you'll see yellow tape over the AC ducts on the box, and you'll always see that there's AN fitting covers over top of all AM plumbing. If you keep everything closed off from the dirt, it stays clean, you don't get the dirt inside your parts. It makes for a better finished install.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Steve.
So we're doing a cooling system install first.
Yep.
Then we're going to move on to brakes. Or we're going to do...
Mike will be working on the brakes. Tony and Justin are going to be doing the radiator support. I'll grab Jason and Justin when they're done there, and they're going to put the fuel tank in. So we got quite a bit going on again. We'll get some more parts on the car here shortly.
Right.
Mike's working on the wiring. That's coming along good. I think he's got the Holley stuff is all wired. Tail light harness is headed that way.
I can't believe how much progress he's made with the wiring, and just how clean the installation is. Anybody can plug in a weather pack connection, but it takes experience and talent to think 5 steps ahead and do a wiring job that's clean and that will be reliable a few years down the line. So, really nice work. I think yesterday we were all a little intimidated by the SmartWire system, only because it's first time installing this particular product.
It's new. The street version of this wiring harness, I believe, is really fresh. You know, our friends at RacePack can answer that for sure. You know, we pre-fit all the computers and did some of the rough wiring ahead of time, so that when we got here we didn't have to completely figure everything out, because we know wiring is the most time-consuming part.
So things like the Holley fuel injection wiring, that was pre-fit?
Well, the Holley part is pretty simple compared to most of it, because the computer stuff all in the engine is pretty much what plug and play.
All the plugs are labeled.
Yeah.
And we've done these installs before a bunch of times.
And Mike wires all of our race cars, so the biggest thing is coming in here and adding the extra plugs and pin connections, and we add the extra stuff we need later for the data and our CAN communication.
So you say extra plugs. Give us more examples of extra plugs.
We'll put a couple extra auxiliary wires there in case we need to add stuff later.
Okay.
We have the wire there because, you know, you go in the computer and command it what to do.
All right.
So if the wiring's already there, we can add to it. You know, we wire, one of the things we do is we wire all of our cars the same.
So that big black box there with the yellow tape on top of it is the Holley Dominator ECM. You can't quite see the Holley logo because it's been covered up. But obviously going ahead and taping up that big ECM will make it easier for us to know where things go if we have to do any servicing.
Yes. Yeah. You know, anytime you do wiring, the key is keeping track of stuff. You know, we have our CAN wires here, and we'll put another set of CAN wires in this J4 connector that's missing. It's easier to label it ahead of time. We're taking notes. We have a notepad. So if you jump in this car with a 48-hour Camaro, this orange wire's in this pin in all the cars.
Okay, cool.
You know, this yellow and orange and pink and blue, these are the same on all the cars.
Awesome.
You know.
So you don't have to relearn every time you go from one car to another.
Yeah, and I think this is what we do call keeping Mike's sanity.
Yeah, cool. And what are some examples of components and systems that are CAN bus on this car?
The race pack will communicate to the Holley through CAN. The electronic shocks, our Instinct package, will be CAN on this car. That is something this is the first one. It's the first wave of communication going to CAN on our end.
That's really cool. So I think people underestimate just how sophisticated these cars have gotten in terms of electronic active tuning that's going on with various aspects of this car.
And it goes right back to the race program driving the street car stuff. Here's going to be another example of it. This car is getting a CAN communication first.
Okay.
So we'll go out and test this for the next however many events. You know, it's been tested on the bench.
Yep.
It's been proven on the bench, but until you put it in a car, we won't validate nothing without having it in a car. So if you look at Ridetech, we have a whole fleet of cars. We don't sell products, we don't own the car.
Yep.
So the CAN communication is going to go on through this. We've worked tightly with Holley to get all the all the CAN communication.
Yeah, the connectivity.
So the race back, the Holley box, and our box are all connected.
Right on.
So they all communicate to each other. We pull data out of all of it. We'll prove it in this car, and as soon as it's proved in this car, that information will then be trickled down into the instinct packages for the street cars.
Awesome. I know I hate doing wiring on my first gen Camaro because the dash is welded into the car. On a second gen, it's a lot easier because the dash gets bolted in at the end.
Yeah, and we took this one step further. The dash will be pretty easily removable to get to everything underneath there, so that's a nice feature.
And there's no reason not to run a fiberglass dash on your street car, right?
No, there's nothing wrong with a street car.
So it's a pretty serious race car piece, but at the end of the day, that's something anyone could do. It certainly looks clean.
You know, if you were to take this like the Sims texture coating and I would have textured that first, I could have made it look like it was a coated dash. I could have done that, but we chose not to. The second gen cars, a lot of the dashes get eat up. You know, they're really expensive to get them redone and recovered. So, you know, there's nothing we can do about that unless you send it out. So, street car, run a fiberglass dash, will actually save you some money.
Cool. That works. And save some weight up high.
Yeah.
It matters.
Yep,
it's
that's
in the
for
middle
sure.
of the car, but it's still up high.
Yep, that all makes a difference.
All right. So Mike is probably in the trunk area right now getting the wiring for the fuel system ready, I would guess. Do we have anything else electronic wired in the trunk? Other than taillights?
The VaporWorks module for the fuel tanks back there. The taillights are back there. We'll have an on-off switch. The Optima battery's back here. Actually, I'll point something out on the Optima battery. You know, Optima's, you know, we've had a long relationship with Optima. You know, the Corvette ran for 3 years on one battery. You know, as much as that thing vibrated and got beat to death.
Yep, and it sits in between races.
Yeah, sits for long periods.
Right.
You know, the biggest thing with Optima is you got to use the right charger. So make sure you have the right charger. They have the little trickle chargers. Best way to do it. A standard battery charger will ruin an Optima battery.
Yep, and they make a really good battery charger that you can tell exactly what's going on.
They're $80.
Yeah. I just hate when I drive over mine.
Yeah, then there's that.
Yeah.
The battery mount particular in the car here is it's actually one of Ridetech's good customers, Schwartz from Schwartz Performance, makes this battery tray. So Jeff and Dale, they're in, I believe they're in Wisconsin.
They are in Illinois.
Illinois, make that battery mount, which is different than most because we're not going over top of the battery. They've chose to clamp it down at the bottom on both sides. And this is by far my favorite battery hold down out there right now. We run them in all of our cars.
It's not putting any pressure on the cells.
Right.
themselves.
Well, in bridging across the top, it's a battery. So if you tap that positive post to the aluminum,
you end up with pretty
a melted
sparks.
wrench and sparks, and
I like sparks.
yeah, it burns your hand. We don't want none of that.
Yeah. All right, cool. And looks like a anodized piece.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
You tell we like our snap-on tools around here too.
Of course, whoever you run with, whether it be Good Guys Autocross, Good Guys Run Custom, or Drive Auto X, or Autocross Guys, or NMCA West, they're all going to require a battery, a hard-mounted battery with a good bracket. So it's good for you, and it'll help you pass tech and those other people, SCCA and
all right.
that.
Well, looking around the shop just a little bit because we're about to talk about our friends at Forge Line. You know, top of the lift here, we got a green Camaro that we can get a little bit of view under. Michael wants to take a quick peek. We got a level 3 Ridetech kit on this car and some Forge Line wheels.
That's a pretty car.
It's a little dark, but just the point. You know, we have Forge Lines all over the shop, but the car under the lift, Dave was asking about yesterday. This is actually Forge Lines car we're building. A little more sanding on it next week. We'll get it shined up and looking pretty. A lot of people have been asking about the car. It's ready for its finish. Wet sander will polish it up, get the instinct shocks installed into this car, and get it headed the right direction. You know, a lot of people have questions about wheels and differences in wheels, and let's take a look at, you know, some of the Forge line stuff here. You know, wheels aren't all the same. People always ask the difference in price of wheels and why. You know, a lot of it has to do with, what's that have to do with, they ask. Is it made in China? Is it made in the States? Is it strong enough?
Is it round?
Yeah,
that should be a basic question.
That's not funny, but if you grab a bunch of wheels and spin them on a balancer, most of them aren't round.
Yeah, you'll see some wheels going down the highway and you're like, wow, all right, that's got some run out.
We've ran Forge line wheels for years. It's pretty much the only wheel I run here in the shop on all of our customer cars. And once customers see them, they understand it, and they're appreciative that they're made right here in Dayton, Ohio. You know, they're just an hour and a half down the road. You know, this is a 3-piece wheel. Dave and their crew have done lots of testing, and they know how much material can be removed from the wheel everywhere so that it's still rigid, still holds its shape, at high speed, hitting the curbing on the road course. I mean, if you look, you know, Forge line's all over road racing.
Yeah, you go to the 24 Hours of Daytona. Not only are Forge line wheels on a solid percentage of the field, but Dave Sharp, the owner of Forge line's there. I mean, he's there to
Right.
provide support. And
Dave would have to correct me for sure on this, but I believe they run Forge line wheels on the Mustang and Camaro road race teams. Is the only wheel they're allowed to run.
they do. They do.
So they're just not a pretty wheel company. They are a race-driven, high-performance wheel.
That makes pretty wheels.
Right, and you could see them all over the place. You know,
Yeah.
anything from a Bugatti to a Lamborghini to a Corvette has the wheels. So, you know, they know where to take the material out. They use lightweight hardware. The wheels are, you know, the lightweight wheels are 17 to 19 pounds a piece, being a 12-inch wide wheel, which is unbelievable. And if you look, you know, we've got titanium hardware in them. Anything you can do to remove weight from these wheels, they've done. And rotating mass out there on the wheels is critical. I mean, you got to get them to start moving and get them to stop moving. And they know how to do it.
And for anyone who's wondering, this is one of our front wheels for the Track 1 Camaro. It's got a 315/35 ZR18 G-Force Rival S on it, and the rears are 335s.
And while we got the camera here, people always ask this question too. Caliper offset clearance is always asked. You can see the distance under my hand to the spoke. Look at the caliper to the mounting surface. As you get into the later model cars, a lot of wheels won't even fit. They have to clear this caliper. You know, you've got 1.25 inches of caliper hanging out on the front side of the wheel mounting surface. So these measurements are critical when ordering your wheels. And with Forge line, they'll ask you right on your build sheet, what brake package are you running? And you'll say, I'm running a Wilwood 140-9118 drilled. They'll pull up that number off Wilwood's website, and they have a sheet that shows all of these offsets. So it'll have the measurement, center to here, height, caliper offset, this curve. That's all on there. Forge line takes them numbers, puts it in the computer, makes sure we have enough clearance, and they can maximize. By doing that, they can maximize how much front space you have on your wheel.
Yep. And if you don't know, they know. They can help you out. Same with Wilwood. If you're not quite sure what caliper will clear your wheels, they pretty much have all that counterweight clearance information, so that that counter clearance information, so that you can try to get it right the first time.
And you know, you know, with Forge Line particularly, because I work with them every day.
Look at that, yeah. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but that right there is a print.
So you're looking at the diagram right here from Wilwood, one of the basic ones. You see the caliper, you see the offset to the mounting surface. Then they have.
Go ahead, move this a little bit each way so that the light doesn't quite catch it.
And you know, they give you all the information, which we're talking about right here for the wheel fitment. And the beauty of like with Forge Line is they do so many of these cars. They know from working with good builders around the country that, hey, we just did this wheel and tire package on a level 3 Ridetech car, a stage 2 Ridetech car, or even a Detroit speed suspension car. And even with the track 1 spindles, we know what all the offsets are. So if you give Forge Line a call, they'll know the offsets, and if they're not completely sure, they'll help you through it and tell you how to measure it and how to get all the spacing right, but they'll get you done the right time.
Yeah, those decisions are easy, but there's one decision that's really hard in this process, and that is what color finish, what type of finish do you want on your Forge Line wheel? Smitty, which do you like better?
You know, I like them both. Me and Dave worked together a lot, and I said I want the gloss black and the semi-gloss black was the choice I wanted on the car, because we haven't seen it yet, but the bumpers and everything are matte black on the car, so I wanted that black and black combination. And I told Dave, I said, pick me out something loud and obnoxious. Kind of go with maybe my personality a little bit. And,
yeah, a little bit.
That's what we got.
Your personality. Well, I'll tell you what. Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to speak for Dave here, but we want everyone out there watching to comment which color wheel they like better. Do they like the black on black wheel, or they don't like the orange on gray wheel? Hit a comment, let us know which of the two you like better, and we're going to go ahead and pick 5 people who comment. We're going to pick them at random, and we're going to get them out a Forge Line T-shirt. So let's go. Which do you like better? All right, Chris Tharp likes the orange wheels. Keep those comments coming. Let's see which wheel you like better, and you might win a T-shirt. Mike Martin likes black. David likes the orange on gray. Those black wheels, by the way, are just really cool. The satin finish on the center section and the gloss black on the outer rim is just a great combination. Sorry, Dan, you don't get a T-shirt. What do we have? So I'll tell you what, right now it's like about even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 for orange, and about the same for black. Let's keep this going. By the way, folks, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this live build. If you can, go ahead and hit that share button. That will alert your friends, your following friends that we're building live right now, and then they can watch right along with us. So just hit that share. I see Smitty's complicating the matter further.
Well, the beauty of the wheel is you have choices, and I just wanted to point it out because these are the same wheel.
Yeah, and the people at Forge Line are masters at nailing wheel color to match the color of your car. So even that, if you're not quite sure which way you want to go, reach out to Forge Line and pick their brains, see what they think. I really like that unobtainium color center section on that wheel you just brought over.
And now this is your brushed outer clear coated. Got a a satin gold center in it.
And they have a few different shades of gold. Like the gold that we have on the new 48-hour Camaro is brighter, a little bit more yellowish, a little bit more orangish, I should say, than that dirty color right there. But I like that.
I believe Dave's online there. He could probably tell you the gold name for sure. I'm horrible with all the names of the colors.
Yeah, Dave, if you're there, let us know what this unobtainium wheel color look is called.
Looks good.
This is great.
To answer your question, Josh, I'm not getting the Oakley colors. We're going to go with gray and orange. How's that?
There's room for an underwear joke in there somewhere.
Well, I get ribbed a little bit because I like my Oakley sunglasses, and I got a few colors of them, and I did find a gray just like this, but I need to find some orange accessories to go with it, I think.
And the orange size 18 sneakers?
Not quite that big, but sort of. Looks like we got a radiator.
Yep, making light work of getting the core support installed. That looks like it is the original core support that came with the car.
It is.
So this was not made overseas. This was made right here in the USA almost 50 years ago. The radiator, of course, is a C&R racing piece. These are the same people that make radiators for all the top teams in Cup. Note that I used the word radiator as well as radiator, so that whichever you prefer, I've got you covered. And the fans, where the fans come from, Smitty?
The fans are Spall.
Fans are Spall fans. Do they come from C&R Racing, or do you get that separate?
Yeah, no, it comes from C&R Racing. It's a complete module. They build the whole thing and send it to us.
Oh, so it comes shipped with the fans installed?
Yeah, they're installed, ready to go.
All right. So this is a custom tailored system directly for second gen Camaros.
Oh yeah, can't bend it down.
I'll just go grind it off real quick.
Just pull it out.
And then you can't quite see it, but now you can see it. They have their remote mount oil filter mounted to the bottom of the factory core support, which makes it just super easy to swap out that filter when you're doing oil changes. Probably doesn't hurt that it's in the breeze too. And it looks like they went ahead and just made some custom stanchions for that.
The gold is medium bronze, Dave said.
Medium bronze. That is my color of choice. So Mike Ballard is in the cockpit putting together weather pack connectors for some of the electrical connections coming from the trunk. Now he doesn't have to do that. He can just go hardwire everything. Yeah, but this way the system will be just a lot more serviceable. And of course he could be using butt connectors, but instead he's using weather pack connectors, which are not only easy to connect and disconnect, but also weather tight. It's not hard, a little intimidating until you've done it a few times. It's a few extra steps involved, but basically, once you've done it a few times, you can see him doing one right here. He's basically going to clip off just the right amount. He's already got the weather tight boot.
You don't get a choice.
Snuck in on the back.
You think it's hot here? Stand right there.
And he takes these special connector. That's a male side right there. And that is what's called
What's
an
that?
open U connection. I know that because I'm doing a wiring
It's just a
project
little
right
piece of
now.
metal, so it won't matter if it
So
shapes it.
special tool, not special, you can
Yeah,
get
as
it
long as it's
anywhere,
not
but
gonna rub a
a
hole
different
through
type of crimping tool that you need to get if you're doing weather tight connectors. And then the beauty of these deals is that they have little prongs that stick out
The radiator's supposed to go
so
under
that
that.
the terminal cannot back
Isn't the
out
radiator
of
supposed
the
to slip
connector.
under that?
If you want, you need to use a special tool and just push it out from the front. But pretty slick design. You can see how Delphi, General Motors, developed this deal so that when they're putting connectors together, they don't have to worry about the terminal being pushed out and no one knowing it happened until the QA phase. And that's it. He's done. So we did a little bit of MacGyvering on the core support. That is a legit original core support, and it had a slight little extension on the flange at the rear edge of the core support that was just at odds a little bit with the radiator itself and the mount. That mount also comes from C&R, I believe. Is that right, Chris? That mount on top, yeah. So that mount that you see there with the rubber isolators and everything comes from directly from C&R with the radiator and with the fan assembly. How we doing on wheel color? Let's see. Yeah, once again, folks, if you let us know which wheel color you prefer, orange or black, you might win a Forge Line T-shirt. We're only giving away five lucky winners. But just for fun, we're trying to see who likes what color better. I'm guessing Brett Vocal, president of Ridetech, likes the black on black wheels better. So it'll be fun. We'll be able to take this poll and say, here you go, Brett. Look, people like the orange wheels. It's starting to look like black is in the lead. Nah, still about 50-50.
It's actually kind of weird not having Brett here.
Yep.
But it's not normal for Brett to be up at the shop here where the race car's at anyways, but normally
ready.
he's right in the middle of helping us out and lending
Get
his
ready for
advice.
break time? Yeah. Don't forget that Max custom tie down mat.
We gotta talk about brakes.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about Miller built. Let me go get that Corvette bearing pack hub.
You want me to chit chat about this? Mike, you're a guy after my own heart if you're on your 5th sets of forge lines on order now. All right, we're getting everything in place. We're going to let Mike go on about the brakes here.
So yeah, you want to start doing this?
Yeah.
So we've already pretty much pre-mocked everything up to make sure that the spacing and the radial height was correct. The other side went together really well. Now we're going to start on this side and get it buttoned up. After this is installed, it'll be done and ready for next week when they go to Texas. So one of the things that we're doing here, and a lot of you will probably notice, but this looks like it's C5, C6 based. And what it is it's a Curry 9 with a Miller Brothers full floating assembly. And the thing about this is, you want to explain what's going on with that hub?
Yeah. You know, brake knockback is caused from the rotor knocking the pistons back and forth. So if you push the pad out, you lose the brake pedal. Most times this all generates in the back of the car because your traditional bearing will move this way. If you have a C-clipper and it's 100 times worse, you can't control it. So you went to a 9-inch and you had a Torino style bearing and they still have a few thousandths movement. Well, if you move this surface a few thousandths, then add pressure to it, by the time you get to the end of this 14-inch rotor, you're now moving 15, 16, 20 thousandths, knocking that pad off. So everybody's going to bearing packs or a floater assembly. There's many ways to skin the cat. Curry has their own Autocross floating setup that has a bearing pack in it. We chose to run Miller's because I like the C5, C6 bearing pack. We're running the C7 bearing right now because it does not have the reluctor wheel and electronics in it, and they're affordable. You know, these are $120 bearings, but it also gives me the ability to add the sensors and put anti-lock brakes on this car in the very near future. So when you run this big bearing, you've got two bearing surfaces. So you've got a set of, basically a roller bearing that's taller this width and another set that's further out, which puts a divider in the center of it. So your bearings are all set like this. So they can take a load of being side loaded. And these bearings are tested over 2 Gs. I know that for a fact. I think they're approved at 3 point something. This is what's on a new C7 Corvette that runs 200 mile an hour on Thunderbirds, so we're not going to hurt them.
Well, another big thing that a lot of people don't realize is when you've got a conventional 9-inch or a 10-bolt, you've got the axle that's sticking out of the housing, and then it flutes out to your wheel flange. So you've got a housing with the axle sticking out. Well, then you put a big offset forge line, 18-inch wheel with lots of grip, with a 335 on it. It's putting a lot of side load on that whole rear end. Well, the whole housing and axle want to move together because there's nothing out here pushing it down. Well, the good thing about a floater is you go to an axle that's loaded down inside of here, and then it drives this hub. So when there's force this way, the axle is separate and it's wanting to push back down. So that really makes the rear end a lot more rigid. That's what the whole idea of a floater or floating rear end, because that axle can actually come straight out without even taking the wheel off. The axle floats inside of the rear end housing. So there's a lot of there's a lot of different mathematical, scientific things going on with a floating rear end so that you don't have as much axle flex as well, which for a car like this is going to be a necessity. So, like Chris said, when you start putting a 14-inch rotor, now you've got 7 inches, close to 7 inches of radial torque that you can start pushing the pistons back in the caliper, and that causes that knockback. So we're trying to exclude anything that can happen like that. So that's something that we're constantly explaining to customers. Listen, what are you doing with your car? If it's just simply a hot rod, A conventional 9-inch or even a 12-bolt, 10-bolt, that'll be fine. But if you're going to do any performance driving, you've got to go to a fixed mount, floating setup. So, like I said, everything was mocked up. I'm going to do the final assembly, starting getting the bracket bolted in. I'll get everything back mocked up, and then I'm going to go back through and torque everything to the specs that we call out in the Wilwood instructions. So on this particular application, what I found is we had to run some shims to move the caliper out radially. That's the nice thing about a radial mount caliper is you've got adjustments on your bracket side to side, but then you can adjust your radial height. And what we're doing on this particular application, when I install the rotor, you'll see that it's floating as well. So the main objective of a floating rotor, and we touched on this a little bit yesterday, the objective of this rotor is, as it gets saturated and heats up, it wants to grow. A big misconception is floating rotors help this. It does not help this. What it does is, it will grow so that it stays linear to the pad face. So we're not pushing back the pads. Because when this is fixed mount, and you start driving the thing on, say, a road course, the rotor wants to grow, but it's pinned on these 12 bolts. So it starts to cup over, and it pushes the piston back. This is going to allow it to grow, and then expand and contract, staying linear. That's a big deal, especially when you're going to be out on the road course.
Right, and one thing I don't want Mike to miss on is, hand me that caliper back, Mike. Our friends at Wilwood make, and have made, their own brake pads. So when you call to order your brake kits, whether it's from straight from Wilwood or for Summit, or you can give me a call too. I'm a dealer, so I can get you hooked up. Give myself my own little plug there. They have so many choices on brake pads. Your out of the box standard brake pad is not an autocross pad. It's not a road course pad. It's a drive your hot rod with a 350 horsepower motor, no squeaky, civilian brake pad.
Yeah, so that's like,
look, I've got cool big brakes. They don't make any noise. That's what I put on my wife's Denali when we put them on here next week or whenever Mike gets them here. That's not for performance. So then we, hey, I might autocross my car just a little bit. So then we'll put maybe a BP 20 or 40.
well, a 20. That's going to be our most aggressive street pad.
Okay, so we have choices. Now, on my choice, I run the B-pad. I run the B-pad across the board.
Yeah.
I run it road course and autocross. It's the pad. I know exactly what that pad does. I know how deep I can drive the car in on an autocross, on a road course. They come up quick. It's the pad I like. Now, Mike Byer probably doesn't run a B-pad. He probably runs something different.
Well,
Brian Hobaugh probably runs something different. Ken Thwaites probably runs something different.
and see, I can't tell you what they run.
Mike should be secret about it. We just told the world I run B-pads.
Well,
And
and they run different things at different places even.
Right.
That's the whole premise of being able to switch things out to be sensitive to where you're going to run. So I have lots of customers that run, let's say at a USCA event, the first day, which is autocross, and the road rally, they run a BP 20 or an E-pad.
Jimmy wants us to drive our car, race our car, autocross our car, road race our car, speed stop our car, keep it off the wall, do everything to our car. And not everybody can have 5 brake pads.
Yeah.
So we can get you in a good choice.
Yes. So what I've been doing is putting everybody in the less aggressive for the autocross and driving on the street, and then the more aggressive pad for the speed stop and the road course. Now,
Makes sense.
You're one of the faster drivers, and this car is going to be set up for more track-oriented driving. So keeping the B-pad in it is really not a problem. you understand what the differences are going to be. And that's going to be some rotor wear, but you're not driving the thing on the street as much.
Right, and rotor wear, I mean, we get a year out of the rotors anyway, so we're doing good. You know, we got a lot of good information going here. All kinds of brake information. I'm going to calm my buddy Mike here. Ask some Wilwood questions, and maybe Mike will give you guys some T-shirts too. 5 shirts. We're going to make Mike give away 5 T-shirts, so give us some brake questions. We have Mike here. He can answer your questions. Tell us you love them. Post a picture on there. Get the info coming. But we got Wilwood here to give us a hand, so let's take advantage of that. We'll let Mike finish talking about this, and I'm going to go back to work.
So what's really important with everybody at Wilwood is we deal with guys like Smitty who not only sell our parts, but use the parts and then give us feedback, good or bad. And the funny thing is, a lot of people, if they're having no issues with their brakes, we never hear about it. We just see that they're in the winner's circle. But if they're having bad experiences, or maybe we don't have the right combination set up, of course we hear about it either Saturday night, Sunday night, or Monday morning. But that's what we need to hear in order to make our product better. So there's a lot of times where Smitty has always been a B-pad guy. But I know that later this year I want him to try some new friction materials for us, and he might turn into a BP guy. And so that makes sense. We've got either our poly matrix, which are A, B, C, D, E, F, G type numbers or letters, and then we also have BP, which is also our street and race pads in different numbers like 10, 20, 30, 40. So we automatically set this car up and it's going to have the B's in it, front and rear. But again, he may go out and run the car, say, you know what I want? I want a little less brake, or I want a little more brake. But that's all stuff that I need to know so that we can tailor it to what he's doing. I think that I hit this pad in the wrong spot because the other side went together so nicely and this one was mocked up. Yeah, we're off a little bit. So this side was showing no shims, but I'm thinking we're going to need to run 1 to 2 shims. And this is the whole point of mocking it up, checking all your tolerances, making sure everything's right. What's that? Well, what I realized is it was all mocked up, but maybe we didn't have that rotor on there tight where you saw me put the lug nuts on it to hold the rotor face. We had a little bit of difference on our side to side, so we're probably going to have to run a shim. I'm going to grab a couple shims if you want to go walk around for a minute, Mike, and then I'll be right back.
Can I do the same thing on the? I can do the same thing on the other side.
As long as you're on the T.
I'm just saying the height.
All right, Mike, I got some questions coming in.
What you got?
Do you make brake pads for drag cars?
We do a lot of drag race brakes. We offer a lot of different frictions for different applications. If it's going to be like a Wilwood Dynalite caliper, which is predominant in drag racing. And then we also have our Pro Matrix, which are going to be OEM sized pads, like an OEM backing plate.
Right.
That you could use as well. So, for example, there's a car next door that Smitty's been working on. It's kind of a pro stock type car, and it's got GM D52 front calipers. And if the guy takes it out to the track, the stock pads may not be the best suited. So going to an aftermarket type pad with a little more coefficient of friction or grit is going to be something that he's going to want to do.
Cool. So you want to have a brake pad that'll bite a little harder.
Yeah, you totally do.
All right.
That's a good question.
We have a couple of others. Do you make brake kits for Thunderbirds? A 66 Thunderbird.
66.
Ken likes the classics.
You know, I'm going to say that directly from Wilwood, we don't. But I am pretty confident that we have a distributor that specializes in early T-Birds. So, like, what's the first year of the T-Bird? 57?
First year for the Thunderbird, dude, is 1955.
So 55.
55 to 57.
Okay, so I know we have a customer that does those. I don't know the name of the customer offhand. You'd have to call into Wilwood.
Probably Larry's T-Birds, or there's a couple out there.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so we'll move on. We got some more questions. Can .4 fluid be used in a .3 brake system?
Yes, it can. And it's because they're both glycol based.
There you go. So you don't have to flush the system first at all?
No. What I typically like to do, so if I'm at the track and someone's having heating issues,
right,
and I want to get them into our .4 fluid, I'll try to purge as much of the .3 without letting the system run low or out of fluid, and then top it off and bleed the system some more.
All right, cool. And that question came in from Ryan Quang. He also wants to know how much of an advantage it is over .3.
It's quite a bit. So one thing that people don't realize is that brake fluid, steel braided lines, and good pads will make a world of difference on even a stock brake system. People don't believe that. They have this conception that, well, if I'm going to start doing track days, then I've got to spring for $2,000 worth of brakes to do my, let's say, front brakes.
Look at that, slides right on.
So yeah, we had a shimming issue. And then something that maybe, Mike, you want to come in and show on this. So when we're setting up a car that's going to be used like this, especially where we know that the system's going to get saturated and we're going to have rotor growth, what we want to do is we want to set the top of the brake pad to the outer diameter or a tick higher than the rotor. Because what's going to happen is, as that rotor grows, then it will match the swept area. Can everybody see that? There's a lip here. So now, I'll pull this thing off. I'll put my shims that I had already set up on it. And now the pad is just barely above, probably 15 thousandths. So that's good. So that means that as this rotor grows, it's going to match the brake pad. That's really important.
And I think one of the big lessons here is don't just, if you have a brake kit of this caliber, don't just throw it on the car. You do have to take a little bit of time and shim the system and make sure everything fits properly. It works for your Toyota Camry where you're just taking off the old brakes, putting the new brakes on. But if you're setting up a custom system, take a little bit more time and get it all aligned right.
Exactly. And, you know, something else that I do is I'm going to go back and document everything that I did so that when he's at the racetrack and he's got to change something, he can go to his notes and know exactly how we originally installed the system. So that's really important. Any more questions?
Yeah, we've got a few more. We have, let's see. Thanks for asking, Ryan. Those are great questions. Chris Tharp is back. He wants to know how different brake forces front and back affect drivability on an autocross track?
So
So autocross, real quick transitions between throttle and brake. No egg under the throttle.
what I'm thinking he's asking is, how do you set up the bias of a vehicle? And bias in the vehicle is going to be dependent on quite a few things. It's going to be dependent, to me, and as someone that does do some performance driving,
Right.
I am not as good of a driver as, say, Smitty, or well, even Brett Vocal. I'm just not as good of a driver. And what I find is a lot of guys that can wheel a car, especially in the autocross, they can use a lot more rear brake.
Okay.
Somebody that Smitty brought up, and somebody that I do a lot of testing with, is Mike Meyer out on the West Coast.
Yep. Yeah, Ford guy. Mustang
He's
guy.
a Ford guy, and he's 9-time SCCA CP champion.
Totally.
He's a very good driver.
He's done this before.
Yes. And he typically runs a little more rear brake than the average guy. And it's because he knows how to drive a car with rear brakes in
So
it.
he's steering the car with the rear brakes a little.
That is exactly right.
Right on.
So like this past weekend in our Wilwood Mustang, I realized that we brought the car out of mothballs from about a year and a half of
Yeah,
not
which car is
driving
that?
it.
Is that the
Wilwood
early, the blue
Mustang.
car?
No, that's the red.
Oh, it's red, okay.
66.
Yeah.
And it's got all triple
Right on.
adjuster Ridetech.
It has Ridetech TQ series triple adjustable coilers.
I knew that there was going to be a big one for that
Yeah,
one.
see?
So what I was finding is on that course, I just had way too much rear brake.
Okay.
So there's different ways of changing bias, and that's going to be dependent on what the system has. On this particular car, a big change can be piston size. So for example, we have 4.06 square inches in the front, and in the rear we've got 2.46.
Okay.
So, and with a 14-inch rotor front and rear, that makes it even on torque.
Okay.
I got a small feeling that Smitty's probably going to want to bump it up to about 3-inch, and it's
All right.
because he can use some rear brake. But we wanted to start here because I want to get information from him.
So how would you do that?
we would
you're gonna
go
change
to a caliper that has
So a
different
different
piston
caliper
size.
with different piston size.
Now there's another way of doing it in this particular car, and if everybody has seen it, it's got our true bar or balance bar set up in it. Balance bar basically means that you can balance your system
Right on.
and have adjustments with it. Well, the major adjustment is going to be the bore size of the master. A lot of people think that you just crank the adjuster side to side and that changes your bias. Well, that's a fine-tuning element. It's not the element.
Right on.
The major adjustment is going to be the bore size of the master. So in this particular application, we've got a 3/4 to the front. The smaller bore helps build pressure easier, but it's going to stroke further because those front calipers have more volume. But we're building more front bias in the car because it builds more pressure and it's going to a caliper that has more clamping force.
Awesome.
Whereas in the rear, we're going to run a 7/8 bore to a 2.46 square inch caliper. Now, something that we could do, and it would be a lot easier than doing calipers, would be change the rear master cylinder to a 3/4. Because
All right.
then that builds more pressure with the same amount of leg effort. So that means it's going to give us more clamping force because of the higher pressure. So there's some different ways in a car set up like this with a balance bar, or what we put in this car, a true bar, where we can adjust bias a lot easier.
In a lot of cases, that fine tuning is what sets the winners apart from everybody else.
It really
But The
does.
driver always gets the credit,
Yeah.
even though it could be the crew chief and whoever's doing all this fine tuning on the back end.
Something that I always tell people is I tell them, listen, Jimmy Johnson didn't win 7 championships
On his
because
own.
he's a good driver.
Yeah.
He is a good driver. But it's
Yeah.
because Chad Knaus is a really good crew chief. And one thing about Chad Knaus, and something to, especially, even if you're already into doing
Right.
this stuff, autocross, track days, if you make one change at a time, you'll know exactly what change made it better or worse.
Well, Chris, I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free to ask again. Thanks for making us do math. Barry has questions as well. Do they set brakes up so forces of braking work with the driver? Whoa. i.e. calipers on front get mounted on down pull, on back on uphill pull to set up rear hike on braking. So do you think it matters where the calipers are clocked relative to the rotor?
It does not.
Okay.
So one thing that I learned at Wilwood my first month there is no matter where the caliper is mounted,
Right.
it is not going to change the aspect of how the car stops.
Okay, and it's not going to change the unsprung weight.
Not at all.
All right.
Cars come on the bottom, so the tire falls off, they can still drive.
Well, and
Yeah, you
because
gotta
they're
have
trying to get
speeds.
their center of gravity so low.
Yeah, right.
So in some racing, that is very critical.
Sure, but if you're mixing trick calipers with air conditioning and car stereos and dynamat, could be you're not going to see a gain from overthinking that aspect.
So here's one thing that I will explain that I like seeing on a brake system. I like the caliper to be at either 9 or 3 o'clock. And the reason for that is we were talking about any of the problems that you have with knockback. Well, if this is your center line and you're going to get knockback, and what's going to happen is the load is going to be this way. Well, if this load is going this way and the caliper's mounted up here, it's going to cause a lot more or induce a lot more piston knockback than if it was even with your parallel line.
All right.
So if the rotor's doing this, it's not going to want to push the pistons back as bad as if they're mounted here or here.
Huh. Interesting.
So that's another thing that I learned actually from another brake manufacturer that originally designed a brake kit where the caliper was mounted about 2 o'clock, like probably 1:30. Well, what was happening is there was deflection in the spindle. It was a front application, and it was causing some piston knockback.
Right.
So they reevaluated their system and moved their caliper down to 3 o'clock,
To that center line.
and all the problems went away.
All right. Cool. It's probably more important that the thing be easy to install and service than whether or not you're going to see some incremental gain from that design change. Let's see if we have any other questions. Johan. Johan says, how come my brakes stink like popo? Can't help you there. Next question. I think that's it. I think that's all we have for questions. Thanks everyone for asking. Oh, we got one more. Will Smitty test out different brake pads, or is he sold on the bees?
Smitty is going to try some other pads.
Now, hang on. Chris Sluss. Do you know who Chris Sluss is? Is this some sort of weird competitive back and forth here where he's trying to get information? No. So what's the deal? Are you going to test out brake pads?
If I feel there's a need to play with pads, or Mike has a suggestion, or they want to test a pad, yeah, we'll try other pads. I'm pretty sold on the B because I've ran that B pad now for 6 years probably.
Since the truck.
The red truck, yeah. We've
A
been
lot of
running
cars.
A lot of cars. A lot of my customer cars run the B pads too, so it's a comfort thing. But yeah, I've ran different pads. I will run different pads. We'll try different stuff out. The straight axle car, the Camaro's gonna be different than the Vet, so it'll be some challenges, but we're gonna start with the Bs.
There you go. And Tom Pichette, he's working an angle also. He says he wants us to run the GA3R forge lines on the Track 1 Camaro because he just ordered GF3s and he wants to be different. Sorry, dude, we're running GF3s and we're pretty sure our GF3s are different. Which reminds us, we have a wheel color contest going on. Folks who have asked questions as part of the Wilwood Q&A will get a T-shirt. I think there were about 5 people who asked questions, so there you go, that's over. But back to these wheels, we're asking folks to comment which they like better, the black on black wheels or the GF3s in gray with pylon nuclear orange rims. Which wheel do you like better? Go ahead and comment. 5 people picked at random are going to win Forge Line T-shirts. And you know what? We're also going to go ahead and give away 5 Ridetech T-shirts while we're at it, at random, to folks who ask questions about anything. You can ask questions about brakes, cooling system, that awesome C&R racing radiator has been installed, or any other part of the car. The amazing Track 1 suspension system here with the Track 1 modular billet spindle, the Track 1 strong arms here, the SDPC Race Shop's LS7 looks so awesome. It looks like a caged animal behind those down bars because of that Tiger cage installation there. And we're going to keep working. We're going to go ahead and finish up the brakes. We've got Mike Ballard back there working on wiring diligently. A lot of the TV shows that you watch have drama, a lot of drama. There's really no drama here. We're just cranking away, getting it done. The SmartWire system is going smoothly. It's something that will be done and out of the way long before the car needs to get loaded on a trailer, so that we have one less variable. You can't see it, but there's body panels being painted in the spray booth at the back of the room here. You might be able to hear some background noise, but yeah, right at the back of this part of the shop is a spray booth that has the doors, the fenders, the hood. I'm not seeing the hood, so the hood might be in there as well. The trunk and the deck lid are in there, and we are working to get as much of the body painted as possible and have it dry. It's pretty much going to be curing on the way to Texas. We're gonna debut this car in Texas, March 9th through March 11th. Roll it off the trailer. If you're there, you'll be one of the first people to see it. We'll probably go ahead and do some Facebook live streaming from there as well, since we're having so much fun. So yeah, let's see some questions. Anything you want to know about? You want to know about turn it on, off. Just mute it. If you want to know about wiring or suspension or anything you want to ask. Hey, James Otto's with us. What's up, James? Owen's doing a 347 stroker in his 65 Mustang, and he wants to put a Ridetech suspension system in it, but not sure what he wants to go with. It's a weekend cruiser that will occasionally go to the track. So you'd like to do coilovers. Would they be best or something else? Well, it's entirely up to you. You can go ahead and run our coilover suspension system, or if you want to save a few bucks, you can pick our street grip suspension system, which is a full upgrade front and rear. And both of those systems will work well for a cruiser. The coilover suspension system has the added benefit of giving you some adjustability in ride height. It also takes your spring and shocks and turns them into one self-contained unit, where you can also adjust your spring rates if you decide you want to go up or down by taking the coilover apart and swapping out the springs. With that said, you have the same level of rebound adjustability whether you go with our street grip system that comes with adjustable shocks or our coilover system that has HQ series shocks. You'll get that rebound adjustability. So you can dial in the shocks either way. With the coilover system, think of that as a conversion where you're going to be changing out the suspension, and the street grip system as a traditional upgrade to your existing parts using really well custom matched traditional parts that go in place of your stockers. So it's up to you. Either way, we're here. William Mills says he likes the orange Forge Line wheels, but they wouldn't be his choice. It is, dude. It's a lot of attention. If you don't need that much attention in your life, go with the black. Mark wants to know if this car is coming to Scottsdale. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Who else has an opinion? Scott Hubbard says the black on black wheels is the way to go. Larry Wu joined. What's happening, Larry? Marshall likes the pylon orange wheels. Good choice. Chris Tharp wants to know the advantage of a new motor like the LS versus a punched out 30 over old school 455. So we've got a few questions here. He also wants to know how much horsepower is too much horsepower for autocross. There is such a thing, and what is the sweet spot? So as I recall from yesterday, Chris, you have a second gen Trans Am, one of my favorite cars, very high up on my bucket list of cars to get. And that comes with a 455, and you want to punch that out 30 over. So the biggest advantage of the LS engine over the 455 is the fact that it is significantly more compact. You will be able to take that engine and mount it lower and slightly rearward in your chassis so that there'll be a lot less weight over the front wheels. I refer to that as a big advantage of one over the other, mostly because with autocross you really do need to be conscious of whether or not you are overloading those front tires as you go through a corner. Everyone else would feel that the biggest advantage over the 455 that an LS engine has would be efficiency. An LS engine, cubic inch for cubic inch, liter for liter, has the ability to generate more horsepower, more torque than a traditional engine of an equivalent size, and even a much bigger size engine. So what will happen is if you were to take your 455 and put on a set of good aftermarket cylinder heads that have some modern technology infused into them, like heart-shaped fast burn combustion chambers and good valve bowls and bigger intake and exhaust valves, you might still find that LS engine would beat it because it has attributes like shallow valve angle technology, symmetrical intake ports, things that make it to where the air and the fuel can find their way into the combustion chamber much more readily, get burned, and get out faster. So you end up making more power for any given displacement. How'd I do? That's about it. You'll find that if you put that LS engine in, you'll make more power across the board with a lighter package. And these days, they've now made so many LS engines. They're squirting those things off of assembly lines every 5 seconds. So there's a lot of LS engines out there to choose from. You can take your 455 and make a lot of power with it also. So if you want to go traditional, you won't be disappointed. Just try to get some more modern cylinder heads on there and get some fuel injection installed. Any one of the systems such as Holley or Ridetech EFI now have the ability to self-calibrate as soon as you install them and turn the key. It's pretty cool. So not a lot of reason to not run EFI these days. All right, that's cool. Jeff says that 455 will make more torque than a 6.2 liter LS engine all day long. Love bench racing. Edwin, thanks for volunteering to help hang that AC condenser. Declan, this engine is a SDPC race shop built Chevrolet Performance LS7, 7-liter LS7 with about 670 horsepower on the. I'm really just a warm-up pull. They haven't really broken in the engine or dialed in the EFI yet, or the timing. So once we run this thing a few times, we'll be able to take it to a chassis dyno and really dial it in. Chris, good to see you run fast, easy EFI. That's a great system. And if you already have a set of Butler performance cylinder heads, then I'm going with Jeff. Go ahead, keep your 455. That's a great motor. It is heavier than an LS motor, and that weight does matter on a second gen Trans Am as far as loading them front tires as you go through turns. But if you already have fast EFI and Butler heads, you are way ahead of the game. I would just keep that beautiful 455 in there and concentrate on the suspension. Give us a call and we can help set you up with the right suspension, the right spring rates to go with your 455, and also the right shock absorber valving to suit your driving needs. Midwest Muscle Car Challenge, I think we have a scheduling conflict with Midwest Muscle Car Challenge, but we do want to be there. I need to go check on that, see if the car is going to be a Midwest Muscle Car Challenge. That's a really cool event. Thanks, Edwin. Yeah, the brakes are just phenomenal. They really are. And they're about done. We're getting close to being able to cross them off the list. We have Tony's under the car doing some brake lines. I'm sure I just pegged my audio meter and that's fine. So we're going to go finish up the brake lines under the back of the car. After that, I'm sure that means we're going to take the gas tank and bring it over and get that installed. So you're not mic'd up. I'm going to walk over to you so I can hand you the mic. But Smitty, scale of 1 to 10. What do you think the odds are that we're going to fire this thing tomorrow?
Today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Unless something...
Scale of 1 to 10. Give me a number. I'm holding you a number.
Unless the Russians hack our Facebook,
Yeah.
we should fire it tomorrow.
You'll fire it. So you're a 10. You're a 10 out of 10 tomorher.
And there's always a chance something could go wrong, but we should be good to go for tomorrow.
All right. So you heard it here. I held his feet to the fire. He says there is a 10 out of 10 chance that the Track 1 Camaro, a 9.9 chance that the Track 1 Camaro will be fired tomorrow. So we'll try to do an announcement ahead of time that says we're going live at a certain point in time, and then we'll try to get all our ducks in a row here so we can pour fuel in it and spark it sometime tomorrow. Probably a similar deal as today. Today we knocked out a lot of stuff that may not have been so interesting to watch, and then went live around 2 p.m. So we'll probably do the same tomorrow. We'll get as much stuff knocked out as possible. Like this is really exciting. We have a power meeting taking place by the Smitty's Custom Automotive staff, making decisions underneath the back of the car. It's possible they're napping. No, they're not napping. Never mind. And then we have Mike Ballard over here working the heat shrink. And just doing, I can't get over what a beautiful job Mike is doing with the wiring on this car. I'm really jealous. This makes me just want to go home and rip all the wires out of my Camaro.
How about a Ridetech T-shirt to guess, for whoever guesses what I'm actually working on wiring up right now?
A Ridetech T-shirt for anyone who guesses what Mike is working on right now. So we're offering a Ridetech T-shirt for anyone who can identify what part of the car that wiring sub-harness goes on. So what do we have? We have 4 connectors. We have pink and blue wire. We have red, black, and white. And obviously, they splice somewhere in the middle because coming out of the other end, they're like different colors. Hang on a second. Look. They're orange, black, red, and yellow on the other end. So magic happened somewhere in here.
Oh no, we've got those same colors on this end too.
What happened to these?
Those get plugged into other things.
See, I tried to trick them into telling me what it's for.
We'll give them a hint. Something hooks up by the rear end.
Ah, all right. So, so it's going to be something that actually connects at the rear of the car. We know that much. So I think I know what it is. I'm not 100% sure, but Edwin says it's going to be the ignition. I don't think that's it because the ignition isn't at the back of the car. Declan says it's the tail lights. That's probably not it because it doesn't have anything to do with the suspension. Nick joined us. What's up, Nick? Nick says neutral safety switch. That's probably not it. Scott Mock, you're wrong too. John Martin. John Martin is suggesting that it might be the Instinct shock harness. Is it the Instinct shock harness? It is not, John. You are out. You're out. So what other harnesses might be in the back of the car? Wait, we have another possibility. Marshall Reinert says it's the Canuter valve. The digital Canuter valve. Marshall Smitty says your Corvette's looking good and he likes them wheels. So not the Canuter valve. Marshall, you are out. Casey Cronin says headlight harness, you're out. So what else might be under the back of the car in the rear suspension area other than the Instinct shocks? Scott Mock wants to know if it's the diff cooler. Scott Mock, you are wrong. Edward wants to know if it's airbagged. It is not. Keep those guesses coming. Mark Rodriguez wants to know if it's the fuel pump. Linda wants to know if it's the VaporWorks system. It hooks directly to the Dominator box. You guys got a hint there. Scott Mock wants to know if it's the beer cooler. Beer cooler? Ed Carr wants to know if it's the muffler bearing controller. Traction control. Huh? Some dude named Dan Ballard. All right. So Dan Ballard said traction control, but so did Mark Rodriguez. And since Mark Rodriguez isn't the brother of the person who is holding the wires, he's not disqualified. So Mark Rodriguez wins the free T-shirt for guessing traction control. We are running Davis traction control on this car. Davis traction control. If this spins your wheels, you can go to moretraction.com. It wasn't too long ago that racers around the country would throw you in jail if you used traction control on your race car. It gave you some wicked competitive advantage and it was unfair, and now your mom's Hyundai has traction control in it. It's just a normal occurrence. So you have the opportunity to not just install Davis traction control in your hot rod, but you can get Davis traction control that plugs into your Holley EFI. It's incredible. Not just that, but it has cool knobs that let you dial in how much traction control you want. Pretty awesome. So this is something we use to help get the car off the line and help control wheel spin as it occurs when we're getting after it, coming out of the turn. And really cool device. This isn't a competitive advantage because this is something anybody can buy and plug into their Holley EFI and benefit from. A lot of magazine editor types also like to turn off the traction control when they're doing press drives, test drives of new cars. The first thing they'll do is they'll get in the car and they'll turn off the traction control because they're such good drivers that they don't need it. They absolutely can just take the traction control, throw it out the window. It's like the first thing they write in their performance reviews of the cars. We, on the other hand, have the ability to dial in just the right amount of traction control to be fast without letting it feel like a nanny. So that's really cool. Swap phones. Mark, you're thousands of miles away. Well, that's a bummer. Yeah, I don't think we're going to ship you T-shirt thousands of miles away. Do you want to relinquish your free T-shirt to Dan Ballard? Hi, Edwin. Yeah, this car is absolutely a Pro Touring setup. We are swapping cameras here, as I'm sure you can tell. That is not going to work.
What happened? Oh.
We're good. Bear with us for a minute. Woo, that's crazy. Ah, there you go. All right, we have the technology. We were able to swap cameras out quickly, so we can just keep going. Boy, it's almost a shame to put the core support on the front of this Track 1 Camaro. That engine looks so good, but it's got to happen. We're going to go ahead and finish up the wiring of the cooling system. Actually, other than radiator hoses, I'm guessing the cooling system is looking like it's done. So yeah, we're plumbing up cooler lines, and we also have that AC condenser in place so that we'll be able to get started on the Vintage Air install. We did a Vintage Air installation on the 48-hour Camaro at Barrett-Jackson in January, and Rick and Ryan came out and helped with the installation themselves, which is just the coolest thing. It really is slick watching them not only install an air conditioning system in an old hot rod, but also to do it in front of tens of thousands of people. We had huge crowds the whole time. Yep, take the rag out. It'll burn. It'll combust. So Smitty is installing the Specter Performance air intake, which is show polished, and in this case it's just a mock-up. He's just going to put that in place long enough to make sure that the air cleaner assembly clears the cooler lines that he's connecting, and in goes the rag. Keep the engine protected. Best laid plans. We have radiator hoses, but we are waiting on hose clamps. It happens. We're human. Smitty just pointed out, you probably didn't hear him because he's not mic'd up, that we could have just as easily slipped those radiator hoses on, but they'd be in the way of some of the other work that they're doing in front over there. So, may as well put those on later. Workflow. We can see that cool triple reservoir system from Wilwood with those high temp lines. Simple high temp rubber hoses, but wow, somehow they look pretty cool on there. We also have brake pressure senders, 2 of them. And just a reminder that we have a little casual contest going. 5 people will win Forge Line T-shirts. All you have to do is comment which wheel you like better. Do you like the crazy pylon orange and gloss gray wheels, or do you like the gloss black and satin black wheels? The 2 models are GF3s and GA3s. The black on blacks are the GA3s. So yeah, go ahead, hit that comment button and just let us know which wheel you prefer. whether it's orange or black. Doesn't matter which color you pick, but that'll put you in the running to win one of 5 free T-shirts. If you win, we'll message you and get your address and all that. Really cool wheels. And of course, all these wheels are mounted on BF Goodrich Rival S tires. We're running 335s in the back. There's a back wheel right there. And we're running 315s up front. There's a 315 up front. And of course, that is the medium bronze finish. This wheel will not find its way onto this car, or maybe it will, who knows. But yeah, a lot of people really dig that medium bronze color, including me. And there's Smitty. Smitty's tired, so he's bringing himself over a chair. This is a Kirky aluminum seat with a cushioned seat cover and a set of Detroit Speed and Engineering adjustable seat brackets. Now, those seat brackets, you don't just pull up on a lever like you do in your street car. Smitty will tell us more while he's hanging out.
The question is being asked is, well, how much does a seat play into the car? Driver ergonomics, I just can't express enough how important a tight-fitting, comfortable seat is. And comfortable doesn't mean comfortable driving the car to Chicago. Comfortable means in the seat racing. We have the new Detroit Speed seat brackets for the simple reason that I can pull this seat out, switch it with the other seat, snap it right in. Now Brett can drive the car. With the Corvette, Brett never drove that car because we had the car fitted to me. They asked how tight the seat fits and how important it is. I'm really, really tight in this seat. So once I'm in, my microphone is actually bothering me here. I'm not moving. You could see you would struggle to put my hands at my sides. So you order the seats in widths. Now a seat angle is set in the car. You know, it's a 15-degree layback seat, and we got a couple more degrees in it. So you want to get some support under your leg here so your feet are comfortable. You know, if your feet are straight out like this in the car, it's really hard to move and do things. So you want your feet up a little bit. You want to make your feet so they're comfortable to use. Spacing on pedals, we talked about that yesterday. Gas pedal, brake pedal. I've got size 13 shoes, so I need room. So when I push the brake pedal, I don't push the gas pedal at the same time. So seat and steering wheel placement are critical to a good autocross car. You'll see once the car's put together and I'm actually in the car, the steering wheels will be right here. Lock, lock. That's my hand movement. And that is critical to going fast and being comfortable. So I'm not sure whose question we answered there, but let's write him down and give him one of our Ridetech T-shirts because that was a great question. Chris Starp. You get a T-shirt, pal, because that was a great question.
Hey, yeah, well, you know, we got more questions for you. So, would you drive in that seat a long distance?
I can drive in this seat a long distance.
100 miles?
Yeah, you know, you can go 250, 300 miles pretty comfortably.
Yep. And this being a hot rod, it's going to have a passenger seat, right?
Yeah, and they're both aluminum seats.
So you have the same seat on the passenger side?
Yeah, it's just a different width.
More so that they match?
No, so that we could take the passenger seat, put it in the driver's side, and Brett can drive the car.
Oh, okay. So the passenger seat not only is a comfortable destination for your guests and passengers, but it's also a storage position so that you can just take the seat out of one side, swap it over with the other side, put the other one in the other side. That's really cool. That makes good sense. So it's not just there for show and to match the driver's seat. It actually has a pretty interesting Ridetech Motorsports team function.
Yes. And, you know, as far as driving the car distance, I don't think we're going to be able to do it this year, but at some point I'd like to run one lap in this car, so we'll go out and do a couple of 1,000-mile tire rack event in this car.
Right.
And with the air conditioning in the car, these seats aren't nearly as bad because you can cool yourself off. And I'm comfortable in it, but it's not a Recaro or a Cirillo or something like that.
It's not the same, but I find these seats comfortable. I find having that Yeah, I find having a supportive seat is more comfortable than having a marshmallow or a cloud
like
that you're
Mike
sitting
said,
on.
3 hours is his torture limit in it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't know. I like them.
like 'em.
I can go 3-4 hours. You know, my new Denali pickup truck, on the other hand, I can drive to Texas and not feel bad.
Yeah.
But
And they're like, and they serve as a go/no gauge. If you've been eating too much in the holidays and your butt's getting a little big, you can sit down in that seat, and if you don't fit, you know it's time to go on a diet. Mike is still at it. So pretty much Mike has to help Smitty keep his word that we're going to be able to fire this thing tomorrow. Because other than fuel in the tank and radiator hoses and some coolant, I'll tell you what, this car's close. Hi Cole, yeah, this car is definitely going to go to Scottsdale. Good Guys Riding Custom Association did a good thing this year. They went and changed the schedule for all of the drivers that are coming west. So all those drivers on the East Coast that were hitting all the West Coast events the last couple of years had to come out to Scottsdale as the season opener, bang a Yui after the show was over, and head back to Texas. So what they did is they changed the order so that the first race of the year is Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, and then it goes west to Scottsdale, and it keeps moving west towards California, including one of my favorite events, Del Mar. It's just a beautiful destination there. So yeah, we're looking forward to bringing this car to Scottsdale. We also like the fact that Scottsdale's running after Texas, because that gives us Texas to really shake down the car and get things sorted as much as possible. So that's the plan. Hi, no, this car is normally aspirated. It does not have a Pro Charger. Someone asked earlier if there's such thing as too much horsepower when it comes to autocross, and the answer is it's a personal choice, but as far as we're concerned, we believe a car has to be balanced. Ridetech Motorsports is a suspension manufacturer. Maybe if we made superchargers, we would disagree, but as a company that makes badass suspension parts, we believe that everything needs to be balanced, including the amount of power getting to the rear tires.
Owen asked us if the race seats will be the only seats for the car, or if we will have a regular set. At some point, we probably will put a set of Recaros in it, but for right now, we'll just run the race seats.
I'll tell you what, Owen, there's a really cool article on Ridetech.com called "How to Make Your Hot Rod Happy," and in that article, which was written by Brett Vocal, president of Ridetech, he points to various ways, not just suspension, but a lot of different ways in which you can make a hot rod that's more comfortable. One of the ways that is cited is seats. We like to joke that seats are one of the most important suspension parts you can install. So a lot of our cars run Recaros, and that holds true for this car as well. There will probably be a point where we will get a set of Recaros and run them in this car as well.
Our wheel guessing is going back and forth. Orange, black, orange, black, orange, black, orange.
I'll tell you what, the wheel thing is about 50-50.
Say hi to Sheila. Jim Davis wants to know what harness we are installing. That is a Race Pack SmartWire harness.
Hi, Sheila. Yeah, that is a Race Pack SmartWire harness. So Race Pack makes electronics, including some really cool dashes. We're running a Ridetech dash in this car called an IQ3, and they just released a new product that has a lot of CAN bus capability called SmartWire, and that's what we're running in this car. We did a really cool painless performance products wiring system in the 48-hour Camaro, which is the kinder, gentler, nicer twin to the Track 1 Camaro here. And this one is getting the Race Pack SmartWire system. I'm wrong all the time, but I'm guessing that sound under the back of the car has something to do with the gas tank getting ready to be installed. Either that or we're still working on brake lines. What do you think, Smitty? Do you agree with that premise that there is such thing as too much power for autocross?
Yes, there's too much power for autocross, especially if you're just starting out. You just don't need the power. Power is the last thing you need. There's so many better places to spend money.
You're going to find yourself limiting it out.
You know, your horsepower, you know, look at a Miata. No power, small car, goes fast. So the power is not the issue. You know, I always tell everybody, a nice 500 horsepower LS motor will get you a long ways. When you're finally to the point that the motor is the last thing limiting you, then upgrade. Otherwise, driving school is worth a whole lot more to you than a motor is.
Right on. The track matters also. The SCCA Solo 2 Southeast region is run by a couple of C-prepared racers. So they like big courses themselves, and they go ahead and lay out the courses at all their events with a lot more opportunity for speed and acceleration. The same's true for the new autocross series that's starting up, Drive Auto X. Drive Auto X courses are put together by Brian Mason, and he has a real good knack for building tracks specifically for whoever's showing up. If there's a whole bunch of Miatas showing up, he'll make you a tight course. If there's a whole bunch of C-prepared V8 monsters showing up, you get a wide open course. So if it's a Drive Auto X course, you might get a more open layout. Whereas Good Guys Autocross, those events take place at fairgrounds, and they are more inclined to have a lot more hairpins and a much tighter layout. So to that end, it's probably better to have a smaller, less horsepower at a Good Guys event than you might at a Drive Auto X event. What is it?
What do they want to do? Autocross stuff?
Yep, good autocross school and club in the Midwest, close to Iowa.
I don't know. Does Evolution go?
That's what I'm not sure about. Like Midwest. I mean, East West, I know.
I don't know.
We're going to suggest you go look up 10 Tenths Motorsport. They're based in the Indiana, Kentucky area, so not quite close to Iowa, but not right next door anyway, but close enough.
They would be good to inquiry though.
Yeah, and if anything else, the folks over at 10 Tenths will know a good club you can run with. And of course, you can check your local SCCA chapter. Just look up SCCA Solo 2 Iowa, and I'm sure they'll have a local region. So as you can see, the build is under control here. They are running brake lines, and they're not quite able to put the fuel tank in until those brake lines are done back there. They could, but it just makes life a little easier to